Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Keith Andrew Network. I am your host, Keith Andrew, the one and only Keith Andrew. I'm here with Debbie Perkins, and I just want to say thank you for being a guest on my talk show.
Oh, it's wonderful. I think it's great.
No, thank you. It's a real honor and privilege to have you as a guest. Now, for people who want to know what my talk show is about, the whole point of my talk show is to show people that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be, and to prove to them you can still amount to something. So hashtag break the labels. So that being said, it's going to be a half hour of your time. And starting off, for revealers that want to know, but I found very interesting and I want to share that you are a 4-time award winner, and also you're an upcoming, I can't even speak, you're an up-and-coming actress and talk show host. But I really like the fact that you're a 4-time award winner.
Thank you. I'm very humbled. I take it as a learning experience. The awards didn't come easy. Nothing does when you are going up against other extremely talented people. And I just got extremely lucky. And I won the awards for doing a radio show. And I was very fortunate that people appreciated what I was doing and that it was touching so many people. So I'm very humbled, and I know I don't brag. I just am very proud that I represented a positive for those awards, and I hold them in my heart.
No, absolutely. When you're very passionate about something, you should go and prove to people, hey, it doesn't matter what you label me or what you're labeled. I'm going to show you I can still amount to something.
I understand that. Growing up as a child, I was kind of pushed aside. I had learning disabilities. I was put in a special school to learn. And I believe that we all exceed when we do things that we find that are our calling. They were trying to show me things that I probably wasn't going to be successful at. I had to find myself, and I had to find what I was good at. I had a child, and she was born with cerebral palsy. I think I might have mentioned that to you. Her name is Tessa, and she's now 30, but she has shown me some amazing things. I mean, this girl, what she couldn't do, which was her ability for walking and some of her ability for comprehension. As she got older, she's brilliant right now. I mean, she surprises me how smart she is and how many wonderful things she does. And she's like one of my biggest supporters. And you don't get any better than somebody who loves you to support you. So I had to learn early on how to handle myself. And then as a young mom, I had to learn how to handle and deal with a child that had a serious disability that took her life and brought her back. I was just grateful she was alive. And I'm just grateful for every day that we are here together. And I appreciate the fact you're doing a show that helps people with disabilities. And you're all wonderful. Everybody can do things that they couldn't believe they could do before. You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. And yeah, I have a lot on my mind. And my coffee's starting to wear off or kick in. But
I get like that sometimes. When I do a show, I'm wired and I'm overexcited a lot of times. And it's just because I really respect people and I love talking with people about their lives. So when we get into that section of what you want to know, I can get more in detail.
No, absolutely. And if one thing that caught my attention, well, first let me answer your question. And, it's that, it doesn't matter what you're labeled, black, white, Spanish, Asian, it doesn't make a difference. Doesn't matter if you have a disability, doesn't matter if you don't. If you're very passionate about doing something you love and you want to be remembered for that when you die, that's all that matters. For an example, I think about, my life, and I think about, what I'm going to do. And, a lot of people are got, wrestling fans, a lot of wrestlers, a lot of actors who won Grammy Awards, who are fantastic actors, who are some of the greatest comedians. And I'm like, well, what can I do? And say, what do you remember about Keith? And I'm like, well, I want to create a talk show. I want to show people, who label me handicapped, meant to be disturbed, retarded, who reads and learns at a 5th grade level. I'm going to show you, hey, that's what people labeled me, but look at what I was able to accomplish. So when people think about me, they will think about the kid with a disability who created his own talk show and became an example. It's all about this. Oh, go ahead.
I like that very much, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. I think I did it because, I was picked on because I wasn't up to the standard of other children when it came to the learning. And so I was picked on, but, I just I'm like you there. And there's still people to this day that would like to say, oh, she'd never succeed at anything. And so when I started doing the show, it wasn't to prove anything to anybody. It was just because I like to talk. And I like to talk to people about things. I started out in the paranormal field, doing the radio show in the paranormal field. And I talked to people from all around the world. And we were audio, and nobody could see me, and I couldn't see them. But we had a repertoire where we kind of had a common ground, and we could speak with each other, and it went really well. It took me quite a while before I got over my shyness. I think that's just part of who we are as people. But, I'm glad you're doing this show. I really am, because I've worked really hard to get, I'm just acknowledged in the radio world. But doing movies was kind of a bucket list thing. I did documentaries right along. I've done YouTube, and I've done, ghost hunting, and I've done all that on the YouTube. But doing the documentaries helped me to be comfortable behind the camera. I think I was really scared to be behind a camera. I thought people could see through me, see my problem, see who I was, the deepest secrets of my life were trying to be normal. I just wanted to be like everybody else. And so I think that's kind of where it stemmed from, being so that then I started doing movies, and I was refused on my first movie interview, where I went and did a part, and I don't know, maybe I just didn't fit the part or whatever, but I ended up going in another room and talking to a professor, and her name is Lori Notch, and she's a professor at 2 universities here in Maine, and I've done lectures for her classroom for the past 7 years, and she was filming documentaries at the time, and I helped her with one in Massachusetts. It was a place that had never been opened in 5 years. It was in Lynn, Massachusetts, on the Stone Hill. It's on it's a stone cottage. It was for family folk singers from the 1700s, and they traveled around. And the house was decayed. There was very little left of the stone cottage, but it was there, and it was below a tower. There was a suicide there. There was some interesting things about the location, and I was doing a ghost hunt there. and there's a lot of people in paranormal that are disabled, and I think people just find their places wherever they can. Does that make sense? Um, but when I was doing the paranormal, it was because I had experiences with ghosts as a child and as I grew up, and I thought I was crazy because everybody tells you you're disabled, but I thought I was crazy because I was experiencing paranormal experiences at such a young age. Then I had them again when I was 14, and I started having dreams, and it just got to the point where I had to ask questions and I had to find out the answers. So that's the route that I took, and I think I'm very lucky because I've traveled up and down the coast and got to do a lot of the investigations with teams. I've got to meet some of the professional people in the field that are on television. So, like the TAPS people. I went to a lot of their events, and one of the events I went to, I was the only person in the audience besides the group that was running the thing that was a ghost hunter. And so I offered my services because they looked like they were short, a person or two. So I ended up standing up in front of 275 people because they asked me to. And I ended up doing a small lecture on dangers of the paranormal, which I did research with it because I had my radio show going, and I've talked to people from all over the world, from 8 countries, England, Ireland, Scotland, Brazil, Wales, Australia. I mean, I can run these names off because I said it so many times. And I listened to what they said, and I listened to how they investigated. And I not only did that, but I also spoke with lots of haunted locations. Everywhere from from Ireland, Charleville Castle. They did a ghost hunt there that night. To Pittsburgh Hospital that's been decayed. I've been in some decayed hospitals with other teams, and I've been in some forts. But let me tell you something. For each experience was different. There was no 2 hauntings the same. I do realize that. I don't understand why it happened to me, that I'd gotten these experiences, but I think that for our disabilities, we're special in other ways. So it gets picked up. I don't know. I guess it gets picked up by entities or whatever. But I've never had a negative in all the years I've worked in that field. So I'm not sure what you want me to say. I'm just kind of speaking to you like I would if somebody was asking me about myself. So that's a big part of my life, and I am part of a Dominion ministry. I am a Christian. I'm a little bit open-minded because of my experiences. So I don't practice any magic, anything of that nature. I'm just myself, and if something wants to connect with me, it does. And I do have some psychic abilities that I don't even know where they came from. I just know that I have them, and that I try to do everything in the. I try to do everything in the right light. I try to do things for the better of people.
All right. Well, while on the subject, have you ever seen John Edwards? And there are a couple of incidents, where I saw, loved ones. But what I was going to ask you is, are you a fan of John Edwards? And what were some of your favorite interactions that he had from the other side?
Okay, John Edwards was a psychic medium.
Yeah.
And I never personally had met him. I've watched his programming, but I also used to watch Sylvia Brown. And then, of course, she came up to be like, But John Edwards had a nice take about how he conducted his, connection with people and what's behind them. I've met other psychics, and I've spoken with other psychics, and I had them on my shows as well. A lot of them, quite a few of them were from the United States, but I've had a few from other countries. One of the gentlemen was Gary Panton from England. He was more of a psychic healer, but he didn't like to be called a psychic. He liked to be called a medium. So sometimes I guess they like to prove that there is difference between mediums and psychics. Me, I personally believe I have the psychic energies. I believe that I connect with them. But I do have that same problem where spirits will come to me. And it's really kind of embarrassing to talk about this because when they come to me to give a message. And God forbid I don't give that message to the person. Because they'll haunt me until I do. And sometimes it gets to be an embarrassing situation where I'm going to a funeral and I'm getting that little thing on my shoulder saying, tell her this or tell him that. And when I do, it's kind of embarrassing at the time. I'm like, really like, oh my gosh, they're going to just think I'm crazy because so many people don't believe in the paranormal. But when it had happened one time recently, it was a girl that I grew up with, and I used to ride horses with her. And her dad I knew very well because he used to milk cows in a big farm. And he came to me on the way to his funeral and said, "Just tell her I love her." And so I said, "No, I don't want to do that. Stop! I hate it because I can't control it." And so I did. I actually had to give it to her. I had to give her a message. So I whispered in her ear, because she was my best friend. And I just said, Wendy, your dad said he loves you. And she whispered back, I know. So she obviously might have had a connection experience, or she just knew that there was a connection. Other times I get embarrassed. A lot of times I've had visions. I went to a haunted location up in Westboro, Maine, and it was an investigation. I'd never been there before. I got following the Maine. My team was called Maine Extreme Paranormal, and their team was called Maine Ghost Hunters. I connected with them on 6 different hunts, and we went to this place in Westboro. It was the mill agent's house. We were the first ones to investigate it. It was a huge mansion. We got to one section of the mansion. I didn't have a lot of energy feeling in most of the mansion till we got to a certain section of it. And then when I entered the blue room, immediately waves of visions came across my mind, and I was looking at the owner, and I was looking at the lead team, the gentleman from the other team, and they're like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, I'm going to tell you exactly what I see. So what I saw was not what we would want to see. There was lots of blood. There was a woman in white holding women down. It was one woman, then a woman's face was changing. This is exactly how I saw it. There was a man. I saw lots of blood. I thought it was a couple that were doing naughty things to people, to women. As I was talking to the owner, I could only say what I was seeing. And but I kept seeing the women's faces change. It was like a woman in white, and then her face would change, and her face would change. So I was telling them that. And the owner's face dropped. The guy next to him, the one who ran the other team's face was going. The owner's like, "Can we please tell her? Can we please tell her? She's telling us everything." Come to find out, in the 1800s, that room was used as an illegal abortion clinic.
Yeah.
I picked up on it in an unusual way. But the energy was there, and I was picking up on it. So I could tell you more about that experience later on, but some of it got very personal. And we spent the night in the next room, and it was probably, I'm not really scared of much, but that was a little frightening because it was more negative than I wanted to see. I did go back to investigate that place with them again, and the experience was not the same. A little less dramatic, I want to say, but it came in a flood, came quickly. As soon as I walked into the room, immediately came to me. And the owner was very pleased. And I actually was taken it seriously by an insurance company. the guy that worked for the lighting contacted me and said that the guard needs you to come in. He wouldn't let me bring any tools, just myself. So I had to walk through this entire 3-story, huge insurance building. Part of it was used for NASA wafers, so we couldn't do any filming whatsoever. So I walked. Took me about 2 hours to walk through this building with the night guard. He'd been there 10 years. He was having so many things that he was seeing at night. But, you know, I think if you're alone in a big building and you're doing your walk around, you're going to see things that might freak your mind out, because sometimes it's just mind over matter. Well, he had other people experiencing things too. So when I went through the building with him, I could only tell him the energy I was seeing and experiencing and the things I was feeling. And so we did the walkthrough, and I this was early in my career. Came down, and it was time to leave, and I kept seeing a shadow walk past me in the weight room. There was nobody in there. It was 10 o'clock at night. And I said, well, you have somebody watching you over there. But throughout the whole building, I had told him where the energy was and what I was feeling and what I was sensing. He filled me in on everything that I had said to him. Every place that I went, I was on target. Now, I didn't know that I was this good. I didn't even know I was good at all. I just was hoping that I could satisfy his need for me being there. And it was respect to go through an insurance building when nobody was there. And so that experience was fantastic. When I did a TV show down in Maryland, I was hired by a director that wanted me to come down and do psychic work in Maryland on 4 locations. Each location that I gave them the energy that I was feeling and the visions that I was experiencing, and we can talk about that on a different time, I was correct on. One of the most frightening ones was a location that we did in an equestrian farm that was owned by a lady and her husband, and she was from Mexico. And they were training horses there, and they stored horses there. And it started out pretty mellow, but as soon as I started doing the investigation, I could tell that the place was a hospital. At some point, I could see body parts in the basement stacked up, and it messed me up a little bit. But then I could also see on the second floor, there was a couple of gentlemen in beds that weren't there, and they were injured, and they were disabled. And I could see them reaching out for help. And these are experiences I've had since I was a kid. Whenever I go places, things like this might happen. And they had. So I just tell people as I see it. On the way home, these 2 elderly ladies, prior to me going down there, had written a book about these haunted locations. So I was just going in there to do psychic work and maybe confirm some things that they had written or some stories that they had seen. On the plane ride home, I started to look at the book, and I was on target. And I was more happy that I was on target with the cases than I was with what I did. It just to me was like, oh, good, I confirmed something for them. That to me is important. But yeah, that's some of the weird things that have happened to me in that field. The other radio show that I have now is, which you do know about, right?
I did know that you had a talk show.
Hollywood Red Carpet Radio. And the reason I started that was because I was doing the paranormal show, USA Paranormal Radio. People can check that out on Blog Talk Radio. I have archives on there, and they'd be more than welcome to check them out. I started doing Hollywood Red Carpet Radio because I wanted to interview actors and actresses and directors and producers and people in, that industry, because I started getting into that industry. And some people didn't want to come on because I was doing a paranormal show. They didn't want the tag. And I understand that. I understand that. So I ended up starting, I contemplated on it for a while. I did research on the name, make sure nobody took the name. or had the name, and called it Hollywood Red Carpet Radio, and I just started interviewing actors, producers, directors that didn't have that paranormal, or people that did horror would love to do the paranormal show. It's the ones that didn't. So I've been blessed on both ends, and some of the talent that I've had on are fantastic people. You know, I'm under Dreagus Productions, so he likes to call my show the Debbie Perkins Show, which is fine because it's still Hollywood Red Carpet Radio. And I will always do that show as long as people want to come on and talk about their lives and their careers and how they got started. I sort of do it now in a form so that people can learn how to get into the field if they want to be an actor, if they want to be a producer, if they want to be behind the scenes of a camera, if they have an interest in being a writer, documentations, you know, people that do the work, come on and talk about the hardships and the blessings, so, and where they're going, so that they can get a connection with possibly Scout or whoever's listening. And I'm at 35 million listeners now. So it's gotten really good. But it's just, people like to come on and talk about, I love it when they talk about themselves. It means a lot to me. So you'll never hear me talking about myself on my show. But on your show, I didn't have a choice. So, but that's kind of my background. I actually was a nurse. I've been a CNA. So I've done nursing work. I've been a beautician. I've done some things that I always wanted to do, but then I was a waitress for years. And I got to liking people. And when I started the radio show, it was a fluke. It was funny. The girl asked me if I wanted to do a show. She was in Kentucky. I said, okay, I guess I can try it. I don't know if I'll like it or not. I ended up loving it, and she ended up quitting. I ended up paying for everything, so I just took it over and then recapitalized on the name because it was a lot longer name. Now I'm just kind of went with a shorter name, and so now I'm kind of doing both shows under my name, but I'm focused on the Hollywood Red Carpet right now. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Now I do have a couple questions for you off the air about wrapping up our segment. The first one I'm going to ask you is, are you on social media? And the second one is, when I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what was your first reaction and what made you say yes?
Okay. Social media is Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Let me think. I pretty much stick with them ones because everything else just gets too confusing. I was on LinkedIn, but I don't really mess with that anymore. So let's just stay with Facebook. You can look me up on Facebook. I still have openings for friends anyways. I have a couple pages, so find the one that has the least amount of friends, and that's the one I'm on the most. And you asked me to be on, and the reason I came on was because you touched my heart with the fact that you're trying to help people with disabilities, and that I think everybody deserves a chance to be loved and respected and honored in whatever they are great at. And I do believe, like you, that it doesn't matter what your disability is. You can do anything you want to do if you want to do it. That's why I said yes to you, because you have a great heart, you are very sincere, and you have a great show, and I wanted to just, I don't know, I didn't even really expect to come on, so I was just on a show in England yesterday, and so I'll probably get you hooked up with him and get you on his show, because he has a great show, and it would be wonderful to get you all the audience that you can possibly get.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Now, I do have a couple questions for you off the air about wrapping up our interview segment. It was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest, and I'm looking forward to part 2 down the road.
Oh, that would be wonderful. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you for having me on.
Arlene Schofield.
My name is Shireen Snow.
My name is Carla A. Miles.
Diana Camuto.
This is Christine Dunford.
I'm me, Eden.
Caroline Macy. This is Walker Fannin.
Maria Camille Dixon.
I'm Sarah Dates Borden.
My name is Linda Presson, and you're watching the Keith Andrew Network.
Russo.
Me, Mark Medley.
Hi everybody, this is Mark Neely.
Barry Papick.
This is Peter Bruno. My name is Kyle Collier.
This is Julio Santiago, better known as Dynamite.
I'm Richard Epcar.
Lawrence Chow.
This is Kerrigan Mahan.
This is Goldar.
And we both support
Keith Andrew.
My name is Ron Wasserman, and I am supporting Keith Andrew and what he is doing, and you better do the same, or I'm gonna come kick your ass.